What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome back to the Run Your Mouth podcast. It's nice to be with you all. It's been a little bit too long, and I just realized I got to start doing these again. Otherwise, I'm going to turn around. I'll be like, I don't even know how to podcast anymore. I'll be like, there was a time when I was a good podcaster. Is this mic even on? Anyone even showing up for these live shows anymore? Did we lose the entire audience? I plugged into the wrong location. Don't worry. Dude, this thing's going to be so smooth. You think I forgot how to podcast just because all month I was working on some end of year misinformation thing that at some point, well, I'm losing my mind, everybody. Let me tell you, if you've been following the show for a while, you would really enjoy my editing process because it's every once in a while I'll walk into my apartment, I'll put down my keys, and then I realize I forgot something that I needed in my car. And then I'll start walking around my apartment and I'll be looking for the keys. And sometimes I'll take me 45 minutes where I'm like, I don't understand what the fuck just happened to my keys. I literally just had them. I wonder how much my neighbors can hear me just walking around the apartment sometimes going, where the fuck are my fucking keys? Because it happens. It happens sometimes and then like sometimes I left it in the door. Sometimes it's on the floor right next to the door. Sometimes I went to take a shit. I put it on the sink right next to the shitter. These things happen. You walk into the apartment, you put down your keys, and then you turn around and you lose your fucking mind because you're like, I just had this in my hand. And then it gets particularly funny when you're stressed out and you're in a rush. Like you come back from the apartment, you're running late for the airport, you walk in, and then you realize, I don't know where I just put down my wallet. I don't even know why I would have put down my wallet. I was just coming in here to use the bathroom real quick so I could be on my way. And I only came in to use the bathroom again because I was already feeling anxious and nervous. These things happen, right? Well, anyways, editing that it's just one big digital process of where the fuck did I put my keys. Uh, so, because listen, I got some unbelievable material that is going to be coming out as a with the end of year thing. I would say there's probably going to be about a half hour that's going to be coming out as clips. And I'm sorry. I know that you guys aren't my boss. I don't know that I know that I don't need to check in with you guys like it's some fucking board meeting where I give you status updates on the project. So I'm just talking out loud because I've been walking around my apartment for 4 days, losing my fucking mind because here's what ends up happening also. It's like sometimes I'll fix a file and then I'll spend like 3 days editing it. And then you realize, oh, I'm in the wrong file right now. It's like you just drove three, like, I mean, I could be what by Arizona in 3 days drive time. So imagine if you're trying to go to Arizona and then you went drove Nova Scotia twice. So that's where we're at. At the end of year recap is going to turn more into like middle of the year update on how 2022 went. So, at some point it will arrive and I hope you guys enjoy it because there's some good material in there that's relevant to right now and probably not by the time I get it out. But anyways, I like to sink my teeth into one project at once, and then I like to ignore every other aspect of life. And I realized I did that for the entire month of putting this together. And then so we just got to get back to life. Putting the end of year thing, it's going to be a weekend project where I've spoken to the professor. I've gotten myself an extension, and then I'll probably violate the terms of that extension, and then have to repeat the class. And then at some point, you handed the paper that you could have done 3 years ago and then not have to have told your parents that you graduated from college and while you still go. But listen, like I said, you guys aren't my boss. Do I need to explain these situations to you? Of course I don't. All right. So we're going to do a quick recap of some of the more recent titles. Get back into the flow of getting after the news on a semi-regular basis. But before we talk about news topics, some random observations that I've had over the last couple days. First is stayed at an Airbnb while we were up there. And, I like ranting about Airbnbs. I like ranting about these hotels. And all right, typically speaking, I prefer a hotel. You can shit in the lobby. I'm a big fan of shitting in the lobbies. I'm a big fan of getting upset with them about whether or not they've got good breakfast or I have to pay for the breakfast. I'm a big fan of using the gym. I'm a fan of swimming pools, peeing in swimming pools. I don't really pee in swimming pools, but point being, typically speaking, I'm a fan of a hotel. Where I find Airbnbs are better is if you want to bring a whole fucking rally crew, you want to go to a location and bring the party squad. Because I brought 3 other comics, the Shedcast boys. I had a pretty big gang up there at the Shell. And so I rented an Airbnb. So what's nice about an Airbnb is that the price of like a nice hotel room, you can, fit 40 people onto couches and have an orgy. So that's what's nice about the Airbnb is that you can get a lot more people to location. The other thing that's nice about an Airbnb is you can be in a location that like overlooks because Hotels rarely have nice views. They're usually downtown areas, or they're charging you all sorts of money. You get an Airbnb, you could have to wander to the middle of the woods in Maine and then end up being able to overlook a nice stream that's kind of more like a pond that also kind of smells like someone's shitter. I don't know what was going on with the river that we were next to, because you showed up and you're like, my God, that is a beautiful river. But I'm pretty sure that this is where the sewage from all of Maine goes to Vermont or something. I don't really know the way the sewage lines in Maine are working. I'm just telling you that this particular river at some times was a beautiful looking river, and at other times it smelled like the river just farted in your mouth. So, but it was a nice view. If you were going to sit down and then try and edit for a full day to get your project out right away while you're still in the groove and you were feeling it, and then have not quite work out that well, it was a nice place to be able to sit down and overlook a nice stinky body of water while you were doing that. So the positives for Airbnbs are that you can bring a lot of people with you. You can overlook nice views. I guess if you kind of want to party, it's probably better than the hotel. You can be going out there, stepping outside, having a smoke. You can be up late at night. You can. So there's some definite advantages. There are some disadvantages, and one is if you're like the guy who's got the Airbnb and you're going to rent me the Airbnb, you've made a business decision that you feel that you want the revenue of nights that you're not in your house, you're going to rent it out. We don't need to be friends. Like, you thought it was like weird when you get into like an Uber or a taxi, and sometimes you're in the mood, like, okay, I'll talk to this person. And then other times, like, you're kind of in a rush and you're like, I would much rather if you just drove and we didn't have to have full conversations. Now, you don't want to be a dick about it. And sometimes I'll sit down and first day back and I'm flowing. My internet, on the other hand, it's not ready. It's not ready to get it back into these grooves with me. So, anyways, trying to say sometimes you're in an Uber. Now, with an Uber, at least that's like a 10-minute thing, or you're like, all right, I gotta be this guy's friends for 10 minutes. I can handle being this guy's friends for 10 minutes. But when it comes to an Airbnb, I don't want to be your friend. I don't need it. Like, the worst part of going to a hotel is when they try and give you a tour of the hotel to tell you how the hotel works. I fucking get it. You got signs. I don't need an explanation about your hotel. And I certainly don't want to run down about how your house operates. I don't need to take an interview for whether or not I want to stay at your house. Just give me a price. I'll rent the fucking place and then we'll be done. And so this guy was like a little bit OCD, like right up front, like, hey, how a month ahead of time. He's like, when do you think you're showing up? And right away, I was like, man, this guy's fucking annoying. But then it was like, I don't know. I think after like 3 days, I couldn't even cancel. Like, just right away, I could tell that this guy was a little bit finicky and annoying. And I could just tell like he was oddly trying to keep tabs. It just seemed like he didn't feel comfortable actually renting his house, which then just don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine an Uber driver before he picks you up, he calls you and he's like, "Hey, I just want to like let you know about the way that my back seat of my car works, and I want to explain door handles, and here's the way that you should open the door, and here's the side that I'd prefer you sit on, and I'm just curious if there was conversation that you wanted to make in the back seat, because I'll make preparations, and if you can make sure that you're wearing these style line, just don't fucking drive an Uber." You know what I mean? Like, just if that's not something you feel comfortable doing, don't fucking do it. And so in this case, the guy, all right, so I could just tell on the first day, he sends me a friendly text. Hey, I just wanted to check in. And I'm like, yeah, we're all set. Thank you, sir. Now, it happened to be that there were critical supplies that this guy clearly didn't stock the house with, one of them being toilet paper. I could tell he had like a half a roll in each location. And then he sends me that text, and I'm like, oh, did this guy purposely? This is, by the way, how conspiracy minded my brain is. I watch the government and I watch all the nefarious activities of government, and now I see the behavior of even just random Airbnb operators, some small town guy trying to make a buck off his house. And I'm like, are you getting tips from the government on scams? And so I go, nope, we're all set. And then even so, the next day, some lady shows up while I'm not there. And luckily, the Shedcast guys weren't doing heroin on the couches, because you never know with the Shedcast guys. I mean, it's one thing when you rent an Airbnb and people want to go outside and smoke some weed. It's another thing when people are showing up with fucking canisters of people are bringing their home game smoking operation of showing up with bongs and blow torches. But anyways, we're not the Shedcast guys fucking killed it on the show, and everyone's got their process for what they need to be creative, and some of it's showing up with bongs and blow torches. But back to what I was trying to talk about, which is the Airbnb guy. And then he shows up on the second day with supplies that I guess he knew that we needed. The guy always fucking knew that he needed. He even asked me. I went out and bought the supplies because I was just like, I don't want to deal with the guy. And then afterwards, he's sending me even more texts. It's like, buddy, we're not friends. You rented the Airbnb. I put my credit card down. I paid your money. I didn't pee on your couches. I was very respectful of your couches. I kept all my urine to the toilets. Some of the other comics peed on outside because they're animals. But well, what are you gonna do? All right. What else did I have on Airbnbs? Oh, I also like uh the review system where like afterwards they're kind of like feeling you out to see if you're going to give them a bad review. And here's the thing, I'm not going to trash your place. I prefer just not to write a review at all. I'm not like even on like Ubers, like if I got it, like I'll select the thing. I don't want to write a review. It's annoying because I don't know, like it was fine. You were cheaper than a hotel, and I got to have 8 people there. And yeah, there's shit that annoyed me that you wanted to check in 12 times. I don't got to relay that to other people. You got a business to run. I'm not trying to ruin your business in any capacity. But then they got this thing where they're like trying to sniff, like if you're going to give them a bad review, because if they think that you might give them a bad review, then they got to give you a bad review. So then people are like, oh, well, that guy was a shitty house guest, and that's why he got the bad review. And it kind of feels like you're on a street corner in New York City. Then they're like, yo, you need some weed? Like, you a cop? You a cop? It's got like that drug, like, you a cop? You cop? You gonna give me a bad review? Smells like you're gonna give me a bad review. Think I better give you a bad review first. All right, what other random topics did I have here? Oh, recently got an email from someone where they said, with all due respect, this is not how business is done. And firstly, very manipulative. I've engaged in the exact transaction that I was engaging with this person in over 1,000 times. I always like that. It was like the vaccine movie that the government tried to pull. Everyone's doing this. You're crazy if you didn't do it. But then I was just thinking, like, we've all had this observation where it's funny when someone goes, hey, no offense, but I'd rather go on vacation with Saddam Hussein. Hey, no offense. And then you just say the meanest thing about someone. Well, how many degrees worse is the line of uh what was I already forgot what the line even was. Oh yeah, with all due respect. With all due respect, I think you're absolutely retarded. Hey, with all due respect, I think that you're mentally incompetent. With all due respect, I don't think you understand how to engage in transactions. All right, moving on. I had some other random ones. Oh, dude, I'm getting back to sleeping on couches. That's my advice for all of you guys for 2022. For a long time, I wasn't sleeping on couches because you know what I did? I bought some crappy futon. And then for a little while, when I first bought this futon, I parked myself right in the middle of it and I'm watching TV, and you ended up with like a big old butt mold right in the middle of this couch. And then you end up at a point where you're like, dude, I spent too much time shopping for this couch. I spent too much time assembling this couch. I'm not going back online to research new couches just to have it here for 1 month and then end up with a big butt indent where now I got another couch that's ruined. And then what am I going to call the company, try and schedule a return, be like, yo, the butt indents in this couch? That's the problem with futons, by the way. Like you get the futon style couches and whatever is going on with those cushions, you can really end up with too much of a mold in the thing. But then recently, here's what I love. I don't know why. Something happened and I fell asleep on the couch. And when I love falling asleep on a couch, I forgot how wonderful falling asleep on a couch is because there's two benefits. The biggest benefit is I feel like you get to have 2 nights sleeps because then you get to like wake up at 3 in the morning, realize that you're on the couch, and then go to the bed and go to sleep in the bed. It's like getting 2 nights sleep in one night. I don't know why experts don't talk about, hey, start your night sleeping on the couch. And then also like falling asleep is so much better than going to sleep. Like going to sleep sucks. Where you have to like get into bed and be like, all right, fuck, it's time to go to bed. And then you gotta like try and like not have any thoughts. And then eventually you go to sleep. I don't like going to sleep. I like falling asleep. I get to fall asleep in hotels because I don't really have a TV in the apartment. But then you get to channel surf, realize that nothing's on, eventually leave it on, some whatever, and then you fall asleep. It's a passive experience. I like falling asleep. But anyways, I'm back to couch sleeping because I realized I could flip the couch upside down. It's like the old P move, except for not having the butt indent. And that's the new thing. You fall asleep on the couch, wake up in the middle of the night, then you go to the bed. And then I also think strategically in my brain, I think I want to start just like breaking up my day with more naps. I think that's what I'm going to start doing is like less formal sleep, more going to sleep on the couch for a little bit and then waking up and getting to work. Because the best work that you do is at like 8 in the morning when you wake up and you just hop to it. But what if you can do that like 4 times throughout the day? Like you go to sleep and then at 3 in the morning you wake up and then you get 1 good hour of work and then you go back to bed and then you wake up at 8 and then you get like because that's really all that happens after sleep. What do you get? 1 good hour of work? Like I usually blow it yelling at you people and then that's it. What good work gets done after that? All right, I think I had two more two more random topics and then I promise you guys that we've got we have more topics. But here, let's see what's going on with you guys. Pulse Hex coming in, first show of 2023. Happy New Year's. Same to you. Jai McNannis. I don't know what kind of fucking name that is. This is an epic ramp, usually a podcast listening, first time live. Fucking hilarious. Much love from Australia. What's up, dude? DM, write your reviews in the voice of John Fetterman. Not sure what that means. Green Belt Glass Games. I love sleeping on my couch. There you go. We're gonna become couch sleeping enthusiasts. That's maybe what we'll do is we'll bring couches onto porches and really marry the things that we love. All right, that was a dumb thought. Moving on. Shell gas stations. Can you get rid of this fucking subscription for 5 cents? You know how many times I end up at a Shell gas station and I'm standing there and I'm like, I thought I put the thing into the thing and it's like, why isn't there gas in my car? And then you realize, oh, because you have this extra step of me needing to select that. I don't want to sign up for your thing. You know how many times I've even seen the Shell gas station, whatever the verbiage is of something to do with 5 cents, and I've never read it. And then even when you go into their fucking bodegas and you're just trying to grab a soda so you can get back on the road and you put in your credit card, they got the extra step. Do I want to sign up? Like the salesiest of all the gas stations. Other gas stations, they just take my money, I take their gas, and I go on my merry way. Shell gas stations, for some reason, they've got this added process where they ask you this question, and then you have to yell at the machine and then figure out, oh, they add an extra step here that I have to press no. And then I don't know why Shell gas station squeezy things, I'm sure that's not the term, are the seem to be the most finicky, where it's almost like it almost needs to be like fluffed up before it starts working. Almost works like a wiener where you got to like grip it a couple times. I guess it needs a little blood flow in there before it can get aroused and actually start filling up your car. Step it up, Shell gas station. All right, we had one more random topic, but I want to get into news. We'll come back to that one tomorrow. First is there was an article in the New York Post about this. They called him a depraved doctor, but apparently this guy, he drove his family off a cliff. And I mean, this guy actually went for it. How many times has a dude been, I will drive this car off a cliff right now? Like maybe that will get families to better respect. Hey, that guy's driving up there. I mean, what do you think they said to him right beforehand that he was like, that's it. That's it. There's a cliff right there. You better be careful. You're driving in a car. I mean, this might be the thing that gets families to act more in line. Like, is there some sort of a market incentive if more people start losing it? I don't know. These are things that I think about because the families back there, they're probably giving this guy a hard time. He's probably spent his entire year working his ass off just so he could have this nice moment with his family where they could be on the road and take this vacation. And then they're just being a bunch of fucks in the back. Maybe this will teach people, hey, by the way, this is a regret of mine because I look back, I'm now 35, 34, something in that range. I'm a single man. And like, I never really I mean, I guess I tour a lot doing comedy, which I now consider vacations. But I guess when I was working, I never formally take vacations. And I look back at the fact that as a kid, not really a kid, but more like teenager, you would do family vacations. And now I understand what the cost of that was. Whereas when you're like 12, 13, 14, you know what I mean? You're just on a family vacation. And I regret the fact that I used to have an attitude of just sitting in the back seat like, this sucks. Why do I have to be with my sisters? Why are we here? Like, can you imagine being, I can only imagine having been my dad where you're like, I just worked this entire year to have this week. Why am I on vacation with my kids? This was a mistake. I should have left them at the couch. I should have just locked them out of the house for the week and let them fend for themselves. So, I mean, don't drive your family off a cliff, but maybe in the in mass, it might teach people to behave themselves better in the back seats of cars. I'm just trying to find some positive in this story of who drove his family off a cliff. And I feel like if we had honest journalism, we would know what the last things that they said to him were. And now here was another headline from the New York Post. New York Times essay says you should mate with short people to save the planet. And I'll get behind environmentalism now. If environmentalism is going to turn from these people these woke ladies going, "Oh my God, you're short. Let's have environmentally friendly kids." I could get into this. If we could make a new sales pitch where the tall people are the ones that are ruining our planet, I'll get behind this movement. I will become fucking internet. All right, quick recap. Biggest stories the last couple of days. One, Republicans are airing themselves some dirty laundry. Here you are. You've had the Democrats. They've been running the show for a while. They've been pushing massive spending bills. They've been pushing we're on YouTube, but COVID things that maybe even Republicans or scientists might not love. I think that's vague enough. I think that's vague enough that even the YouTube censors, as we've just gone back to one of the channels for the first time. So we're going to keep some of these other topics for the end. It's the first day back on the new channel. People don't even realize that this podcast has continued going. The ones that were watching that specific channel, and the strike just came down, and so we're gonna tiptoe a little bit, mostly because I have the end of year stuff coming out in a bit, and I want to save the strikes for that because I will be surprised if that does not get at least a strike. And I don't want to have to sit down and update everything that's on the channel. All right, guys, this is too much ADD for first episode. We're trying to talk about the Republicans are out here airing dirty laundry. It's like, get your shit together, guys. You finally got a moment here. You finally like, just can you do this shit behind the scenes? Don't you know beforehand that you don't have the count? I mean, is this a McCarthy move where he goes, all right, well, these guys aren't going to actually dare air the dirty laundry. So if I bring it to account, they're going to get in line because we don't want to uproot this entire thing when they realize, oh, we were talking about the fact that we got to go battle with them, except we're not even organized enough to get our shit together and pick a speaker. There was some talk about Jim Jordan, which would be fun as hell. I mean, Jim Jordan, not as much fun since because he was particularly good on the Trump Russia collusion stuff. And then I will say he had a couple moments in terms of fighting back against government bureaucracies, making decisions as opposed to elected officials, and what exactly that process is that larger government institutions such as the CDC, I guess, can come up with rules instead of guidelines for elected officials to then vote upon. Now, that framing is not perfect because I think even most of the rules that were instituted were not directly from the CDC. They must have been coming from the White House or otherwise, based off of the recommendations. But the point I'm getting at is that Jim Jordan has definitely been someone who's been vocal and critical of individuals such as Fauci, and talking about that we need some accountability for some of the mistakes that were made in terms of the COVID response. And also, it would be particularly fun because he got thrown off of the January 6th commission because he was certainly going to take a look at Nancy Pelosi and some of the decisions that day not to have more security in the area. So he would just be a fun one. I mean, he handled the Russia Trump stuff better than anybody. He's particularly good at being a sharp thinker and grilling people when they get brought in front of the, into committees. And so that would be particularly fun because it is definitely his brand to go after deep state individuals and a lot of the kind of, well, I don't know how I'd best say it, but a lot of just like the lies of mainstream media. He's been a good person of shining a light on. So it would just be he would be a fun individual in that post. Okay, now there was that moment the other day. We all saw the footage of that NFL player who collapsed on the field, and I think it's important for us who err on, hey, let's be critical thinkers, not to jump on it and go, okay, that's clearly an injury from things that government might have advised that people take. We're not going to be going on YouTube for more than the first parts of the show. I think we're gonna, you know what, we're even gonna come down from this channel. All right, there you go. Now we can have some fun. Go to Twitter. Um, All right, so you had a guy, he collapsed on the field, and then people are like, "Oh, look, this is another case of an athlete, a healthy athlete collapsing," and clearly we're starting to see some vaccine injuries. I think it's too early to say so. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying to jump on these things immediately. Freak accidents do occur, and so to jump on like the freak occurrences and going, "Hey, this is proof of my exact narrative," that's what the other side does. So I think that obviously, because all right, we were so victimized over the course of the COVID, and we were so told that we were wrong and stupid. We're looking for the smoking gun to go, hey, you guys, look, we were right. The problem is you got to reframe what exactly we were saying, which was, hey, there's not good evidence for this having utility. Why is it being forced upon me? And why are we going so recklessly on forced handed policies when there isn't very strong evidence of this being a good idea? When it came to side effects, we said, hey, you're putting risk on your plate, but we have no evidence to say that that would happen. So this just doesn't seem smart. And based on the fact that it doesn't seem smart, why is the government pushing it as intensely as it is? All right. So I think with that, it would be nice to be validated. But then again, almost everyone I know in my life has taken this thing. So let's not root for harsh consequences. That's like that is not the ideal here. The ideal here is that everyone has better critical reasoning and just understands that we should have a more open environment where people can make their own decisions, where people can criticize policy, where the official policy of platforms such as YouTube aren't that you're not even allowed to question the official narrative. That's where the biggest problem is. The biggest problem is when we end up with a government or policies in general that don't allow for critical thinking, and they don't allow people to question what is going on and for better information to come forward. That's where the fight is. Like, you know what I mean? And hopefully that fight is not won by that they were so wrong in the policies that they instituted that everyone turns around and goes, "Oh my god, look at what you did to us." Now, would there be something validating about that? Of course. I mean, we were all told that we were really stupid, and it's nice to see people eat crow when they are so adamant and wrong. But like, let's just reframe the fact that it was never our, or at least mine, we never put forward that we thought for sure that it was harmful. And I'm certainly not rooting for it to be harmful. The other takeaway from the incident was that I think that there's a lot of injuries in the NFL. I think that there's a lot of people that leave the NFL after having played there that don't go on to live the healthiest or best lives because of injuries. There's something odd that when a very tragic injury happens right in front of you, I guess it comes to light to the fact of like, oh yeah, these people are doing something that's really dangerous and potentially, like, in other words, I mean, I don't know the math on this. I don't know how long your average NFL player lives. I don't know how many of them are immobile after age like 65 or so. But it's like everyone had to kind of have a moment of go, oh yeah, these people are colliding right into each other all the time. Like, so that's the other thing is like I guess for an injury like that to happen, considering how many collisions happen every single Sunday between two NFL players, one of which, even though there's padding, like you could hit a helmet into someone's chest cavity. I mean, like that could happen. And so if you see how many, now fine, you might look at the numbers and go, well, how come this freak occurrence has never occurred up until this year? And sure, I guess it's a reasonable line of questioning, but I more what I'm what I my takeaway that was interesting is that once you actually have to confront the consequences, everyone's like so horrified, but like I mean, isn't it almost odd that you don't have I mean, I guess we've never seen a fatality in the NFL. It's pretty crazy the way. I mean, by the way, not that I even watch football anymore, but like football's the greatest sport. Playoffs come around. I'm rooting and I'm watching football. Like it could happen in baseball. You could see a line drive right from batter hits a line drive right into like a catcher. I mean, not a catcher, but like a pitcher's head, and the guy dies on the spot. And I mean, I guess yes, that would be tragic, but yeah, no, I mean, it would be tragic. It would be fucked up to see. I don't have a secondary thought on that thought. All right, moving on. We got two other news stories I'm going to highlight, and then we're going to be back to doing this more regularly. All right. I had in this end of year thing, which will be coming out shortly, I discussed quite a bit the disparities between mainstream media stories and conspiracies that you see online. And I was referring to it as that it's become like make your own adventure of bullshit, that it's very hard to actually get a clear picture. And I was thinking about this some more the other day, and I realized that like news stories at this point, it's almost like the way if you're in someone's house and they used to have like in the pre-porn days, you could figure out like if someone had like an old cable box, you could find the channel that was the porn channel, and then you would see like a distorted image, and every once in a while you might see a tit, but for the most part you couldn't see anything. But there was something exciting about looking at that screen and knowing that if you could see a clear picture, people are fucking there. Now you couldn't see who was fucking who, but you knew what was going on. And that's basically where I feel like we're at the news this day, where it's like I can tell that there's screwy behavior, and I can tell that it's not the real story, and I can tell that there's corruption, but I can't tell more than that. I just know that it's happening because I can tell. Like I can just tell that it's happening, but I don't get more details than that. There was a great article on Zero Hedge, which we are going to give the rundown. This guy had a very clean article of basically the top 10 conspiracies from last year and whether or not they might be validated, which is here's where I disagree with the guy, or I don't necessarily disagree with the guy. I never have too much hope for smoking guns or for like a massive unwinding of corruption or massive validations to the point that average people turn around. Or I should say it differently. The timetable of these things take a long time. So, like, for example, politicians now will admit to the fact that the Iraq war was a mistake, but while it was happening, they didn't. And a couple of years after that, they didn't. It's kind of like if you it's kind of like it takes a couple years for the incident to have passed that people won't be that angry about it, that then we find out more honest information. And now the Twitter files might be a little bit different in that it's breaking the mold and we're finding out that there was that direct relationship between tech companies and institutions such as the FBI. But you're still not seeing a lot of coverage in the corporate media about it. You're still not seeing, you start a dinner conversation tomorrow and you start talking about how you think that the FBI is trying to create a domestic terrorism title and that they're working with tech companies to try and instill their own narratives about things like Russia collusion. It doesn't, it's going to be like COVID information. Doesn't matter what science journal you read, what doctor you talk to. It doesn't matter how right you are because they're not hearing about it from anyone other than their lunatic conspiracy friend. They're still going to think that you're a lunatic. And you'll be like, no, I mean, the actual corporate information's been leaked. People are covering it. They're like, well, I didn't see it where I read the news, so you must be crazy. All right, so we're gonna come down from YouTube now completely. So hang out with me. We're on Twitter. We're live on Twitter.